Hey everyone, welcome to QC and Coffee, the podcast where we chat quality careers over quality coffee. I'm your host, Tiahti Young, and every episode we sit down with professionals from all walks of life to talk career paths, industry insights, and what it really takes to land the job and thrive in it. So whether you're job hunting, switching careers, or just here to learn something new, grab your coffee. Let's get into it. Good morning and welcome to the QC and Coffee podcast sponsored by LifeTech Staffing. We're not your typical recruiting firm. We connect quality people with quality work. I'm joined today by my co-host, Donald Spann. Don, you want to kick things off with a quick intro?
Hey, nice to see you guys. Happy to be here. I'm Tiahti, partner in the staffing firm, and very excited to hear what Justin had to say.
That's exactly right. We are joined today also by Mr. Justin Malone. Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, gentlemen. How are you?
Doing well. Glad that you are able to join us today. Before we dive too deep into the career talk, I got one question for you. The first question, which is, what's in your cup? What are you sipping on today?
So I got a Medieval Times cup. If you ever seen the movie The Cable Guy, you know about Medieval Times.
Yes.
We went there a few weeks ago. My daughter, it's her birthday today. Happy birthday, Isabella. And she told me to use her cup from Medieval Times for this. And I got pineapple juice in here.
There you go. Happy birthday, Isabella. What about you, Don?
I have a bottle of water. I appreciate the medieval times reference as I'm a Chicagoan, and outside of Chicago in the suburb, there's the whole castle structure thing going on. And when I was a kid, I used to go there a lot. But water today.
Yeah.
When I drink coffee, I get too hype.
Yeah, I get jittery if I drink coffee, so I don't do it.
Yeah, me too. I have a little strawberry banana mixture in the QC and coffee mug that I just got. So tastes delicious. Yeah. Well, let's hop right into it. Justin, I've known you for quite some time. And, it's been really cool to see your career grow from starting out as a manufacturing associate to now heading up quality assurance. Huge congrats on that as well. But I want to take it back. When you were first getting started, did you think you'd end up in biopharma and med devices, or did you think that things would just kind of unfold along the way?
So when I originally graduated from Temple University, I had a bachelor's degree in biology. I wanted to be a genetic researcher. And what I found was that I didn't have the greatest GPA coming out of college because I did like a lot of young people do. I went to college, I had a good time. So I graduated, but my grades weren't what they could have been. I know what I was capable of. I just put efforts other places. But that's really what I wanted to be, was a genetic researcher. And I couldn't get my foot in the door, again, because I had a lower GPA than what they were looking for. Most of these institutes wanted like someone with like a 3.5, 4.0, and I think I was only sitting at like a 2.7 at the time. So you're not going to get too many genetic jobs with that type of GPA. But here I am today. So it all worked out.
That's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. Genetic researcher, right?
Yes.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about that. What exactly does that entail?
So I remember being in like the fourth grade, and remember they used to give those little like paper things, almost like the little scholastic readers. And it was all about cloning of Dolly the sheep. And I read that. I was like 9 years old, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool! Like you can clone people." And so I started learning about RNA and DNA. And Jurassic Park was out around that same time, so this was like 92, 93.
Okay.
So all of that was going on, and I wanted to learn how to. Sorry about that. So like I said, it was like Jurassic Park, all of those things were out. And the genetic research I wanted to get into was like trying to figure out like the cancer gene and stuff like that. Like I know it's a specific gene. I'm not gonna say it off the top of my head because it's been a long time since I really looked into that stuff. But if genetics is a cause of people having cancer, is there a way that we could possibly turn that gene off?
Yeah.
That was what the research I was going to be trying to get into. That's what I was all about.
One of the things I know about your background is that you worked in both clinical scale and large scale manufacturing. What are some of the behind the scenes differences most people would expect in those environments?
Oh man, you trying to pull the curtain back over here. I see what you're doing.
A little bit, a
Um,
little bit.
so commercial manufacturing, I'll put it like this. It's like it's literally like NFL versus NCAA.
Okay.
Um, NFL, the rules are strict. You do something wrong, they're not going to throw a flag. You could lose your job. It's no games
Mm-hmm.
played at all. Like everything is serious. You get questioned about every little thing you write on the batch records.
Right.
Anything you put down, they want to know what you wrote this for.
Mm-hmm.
Your seven doesn't look like a seven. Rewrite it. Like clear, legible. Everything has to be, top notch, clear, understandable. I did that when I was like working in manufacturing. Clinical manufacturing, depending where you're at, phase one, phase two, a lot less stringent. Your deviations could be a little more flimsy. Your parameters aren't set. So you could say as phase one, phase two, uh, we're not getting the right airflow. You could change it on the spot. Now you should have a change control, but phase one, some places don't even, go through all of that. But once you're in commercial, you have to change the airflow. You need the study, you need the data, change controls, got to go through regulatory. You got to notify the regulatory agencies about the changes you're making. So it's like I said, it's major leagues versus minors when it comes to the rules and regulations.
I like that analogy a lot. What are your thoughts, Don?
Yeah, I like the sports reference every time.
Yeah.
For those of us outside of the industry and certainly outside of the sort of, people that are doing the actual work. Um, so I really like that breakdown. And I guess my question for you would be dynamically, how does it feel to be in such a specific environment in terms of protocol that you have to follow and that level of intensity?
Um, so I actually enjoy it mainly because at the end of the day, um, you can question me, you can question my knowledge, you can't question these regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, every country has their regulations, and you may not like what I'm telling you when I'm telling you it, but you know who's not going to like it? The FDA, EMA, you know, Health Canada, China FDA.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to like um, if you're trying to do something, unethical, bend the rules type of situations. So that's what I like about it. It's right here in black and white. At the end of the day, um, I don't know your audience, but I'm just gonna come out and say it. At the end of the day, you can go argue with your mama because I got to follow these rules and these SOPs and these protocols. So
I like it.
I you know, I like that. I feel like it takes away the ambiguity,
yes,
um, and it makes it so that you don't have to waste time essentially determining what's right and what's wrong.
exactly.
You talked about the attention to detail, and I think that is very, very important in these types of industries and these environments. One of the things I want to lead into is something else that you referenced, which is knowledge, and we all know knowledge is power. You went back to earn your master's in leadership and strategic management. How has that shaped the way you work or lead in technical environments?
So the way it shaped me when I got my master's degree, I think I was 27, and there were jobs that I wanted that I did not qualify for because I only had probably 3, 4 years in my industry at that point.
Mhm.
But when I got my master's degree, it became 10 years experience or 2 years experience with a master's degree. So now I became a very highly valued candidate. So I kind of like jumped the line when it came to my peers. that I was working with, because now I was able to, like I said, apply for, supervisor, manager roles. And I was not even, 30 years of age at that point. If I had have gone the traditional route and just, worked, grinded it out over the years, I might just be getting to these milestones in my career. So, getting my master's, like I said, allowed me to jump the line. And for the longest time, I was the youngest person in the room, which helped build me up even faster. I worked one company, and I went to lunch one day and I could hear people whispering in the cafeteria as I walked by. And they say, "That guy's a supervisor." And somebody's like, "Yeah, he's a new supervisor." And he goes, "He looks like he just graduated high school." And I go, "Grad school, actually."
Wow.
So, yeah,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
can hear you.
Yep.
Nice.
The ability to jump the line is quite the feat. You've taken on both operational and leadership roles. What was a moment where you realized you were ready to lead, not just, execute?
So this is going to sound crazy to a lot of people, but when you know who you are, you know who you are. Um, my first job out of college was in 2006. I was a manufacturing technician, and I really didn't know what that job entailed, to be perfectly honest with you. I got a phone call one day. I had two contracts that had just ended, and right around Christmas time, I got this call right after New Year's to come for an interview up in Rhode Island. I was living in Connecticut, and took the interview. Had no idea what the job was about, but I had a bio background, and they were looking for people who had science backgrounds to come work at in pharmaceuticals. And I never had crossed my mind, because I told you I was thinking about try I was going to get and become a genetic researcher at the time. So I was still trying on that path, trying to figure that out. And I got a call to go and work, like I said, in the clean rooms. And literally my first day on the job, I gowned up, I walked into the clean room, and in my head, I was like, this is not the job for me. This is not where I belong. And I always knew that I was destined for more. My goal at this moment, my goal used to be to become a CEO of a company. Um, I have done that, independently. I have my own consulting company. I have a vending machine company that I started up recently. I rent cars on Turo. So I've been a CEO at this point. I'm doing that. And I have my full-time job. So I'm multitasking, I'm entrepreneurial all over the place. But my goal has become to be CEO of somebody else's pharmaceutical company. That's that, my goal was always to become like the top guy. I always knew that's where I wanted to be. So, I've had supervisors, I've had leads on shifts. I've had, HR people laugh in my face when I used to tell them that I wanted to be a CEO of a company. And they're like, "How are you going to get there? And you're working on the floor down here with us in manufacturing." And I was like, "Just watch and see. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but, this might be the role for you, but this is just my foot in the door. Like, I'm going to learn all I can here, so that one day I'm going to be your boss's boss." And these people would laugh. And I'm head of quality at my company, and some of these people are still doing the same job 20 years later. So it is what it is.
The part of that is very interesting is it's tough for people to see your vision, right? Because they're living in their own world, which is how things work out. So when you're saying something that you see as something that can become a reality, it can make people feel a certain type of way because maybe that's not their aspirations. But for you, it sounds like that is a vision that you held strong to. You still hold strong to that, and you're not afraid to talk about that. The confidence in that vision is there. I can feel it when you speak about it. So, were you going to say something, Don? My apologies.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I totally am right in line with that same viewpoint. Um, no one else is going to decide what your ceiling is, what your own internal standards are. And when you hold yourself to a higher standard, your actions and your movement will reflect that. And so I'm completely in agreement with that, and I love that you have that mentality.
Congrats on the businesses, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes. And one of the things I was going to talk about too is how fast this business moves. Clearly, you have a knack for staying sharp and ahead of trends. I would assume, especially when it comes to managing deadlines and managing teams and complex systems like SAP. How you go about doing that?
So at this point in my career, I have a team. So luck, I'm fortunate enough that my team um, stays on top of their tasks, and I don't have to remind them too much, but I do remind them. I do check up, make sure things are being done, ask how things are going. Um, I also often ask them to, train me on what they do because my philosophy as a leader is, I'm not your backup. I'm your backup's backup. So you're supposed to train somebody on your team to do your job because you want them to move up and to be you eventually. Um, so I need to learn what you and your backup do because if both of you are out, the work still has to be done. And as a leader, I can't just go to a meeting and say, "Oh yeah, this one's out and that one's out, so we got to push this back 2 weeks." No, I have to get in here and I have to get it done. And it may take me a little longer than everybody else is used to because this isn't my day-to-day routine, but it's going to get done at the end of the day. So, I always say to my team, I'm the backup's backup. I'm ready to go if you need me, but at the end of the day, um, this is your baby. But if you need me to come in here and watch it for you while you have to handle some family business or, take a vacation and get your mind right, that's what I'm here for. Like I'm not here to make your life harder. I'm here to help you get you what you want out of your dreams because I just spoke about what mine are. So my job is to bring people up with me. And you don't get there by, standing back and letting people fail and then ridiculing them in front of an audience when you get the chance about how they're not holding up you know, their end of the bargain with their job performance. No, you're supposed to jump in there and you're supposed to help your team out. And so that's how I stay sharp.
That honestly shows great leadership. Bring people up with you. That is a great mantra that I love to hear. And I would assume if you're saying that to your team, there's a lot of trust and there's a lot of belief that they have in you as a leader, where they feel comfortable having the type of dialogue that they have with you. It's more so like a collaborative approach, essentially.
Yeah, I want to jump in there. I heard recently there's a difference between accountability and responsibility, right? Ultimately, as the leader, you're responsible for what your team does, but generally, the individuals on your team are generally accountable for what you're doing. But when they're not there, now you become the one that's accountable. And so, in transferring and inheriting, being willing to inherit that accountability to make sure that the work gets done, I think that's the mark of a fantastic leader.
I was always raised that ignorance isn't a defense. You can go into Walmart right now and you can go and, you see the people with the big trash bags, filling them up, running out the store. When the police stop you, you can't say, I didn't know I couldn't steal this stuff. They're not hearing that. They're gonna lock you up. And the same goes with jobs. Oh, I didn't know that was due tomorrow. You're the leader. You're supposed to know what's going on. How did you not know? Like, you don't talk to your team. What's going on over there? We might have to reevaluate this team. And then people start to whisper in. The next thing you know, you're talking with HR and your boss, and they're asking you to pack your stuff up. So, I don't need that type of drama because I don't even call it stress, but I don't need that type of drama in my life.
Sure.
So, was there a moment in your career, Justin, where you felt truly proud of the work you were doing or the impact you made?
Oh, that's a good question. So when I first got into quality assurance, um, I actually got to quality assurance by way of, I'm transparent. I don't care. I got fired from a job, and luckily for me, the firing happened at the same time the company announced the layoff. So they just packaged me in with the people getting laid off. So I was fortunate enough with that, but I ended up going from manufacturing. I was a supervisor in manufacturing to basically almost not entry level, but a mid-level quality person. And when I got to this role, I was working at Merck, and they, do the vaccines, ProQuad, varicella, and I had just had, I didn't have anything. My brother and his wife had just had their first child, so my nephew was born. And as I'm reviewing these documents, I talked to my brother, and he's telling me, "Oh yeah, I just took the baby to get his shots today." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, what shots did you get?" And he's like, "Oh, they gave me some thing called ProQuad or whatever." And I was like, I released that. That's my work. And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I review the documents that make sure that stuff is safe." So, in real time, I got to see how my work could affect my personal life. And it made me proud to know that the drug that my nephew received, the vaccine he received, was safe because I was the one who reviewed the batch record and signed off and said it was safe to go to market. So, he fell within that time frame when I was releasing those lots, and I released a lot of those lots. So he definitely got one that I released. So it made me feel real proud of, my work and the integrity. And like I said, I was just coming off of being fired. So most people, would take that and, internalize it and may, oh, I'm the worst, this, that, or whatever. But, it made me work harder because I knew that the heads that I was bumping at the place where I was let go were some of the people who didn't see the vision that I had for myself. And, I'm not going to sit here and say I was a model employee at that job, but we all have jobs where you become the non-model employee because of the environment that you're in and how you're being treated. And, as a younger person, you may not know how to deal with it. And I know for myself, that's what I was doing. But once I realized that my work literally speaks for itself and that people recognize the effort and the hard work that I put in, um, it changed my whole trajectory in my career. But that was literally the proudest moment because it set me off. It was my first job in quality, seeing a family member, use the same product that I'm approving. And, it jump started my career in quality. So yeah, that was the turning point in my career.
You should feel proud. That's why a lot of folks get into this space is to, see the impact of the hard work that they're putting in. So that's kind of cool that, you got to see that in the form to your nephew. So,
Mhm.
what advice would you give someone just entering the world of biopharma or even, clean room manufacturing today?
So the advice that I would give anybody entering this field is maintain your integrity. Um, if somebody's telling you just do this, just do that, um, they're lying to you. They know you don't know the industry and the rules and regulations, and you could be signing off on something that could potentially get you on a banned list, get you put out of a company and tarnish your reputation, and you haven't even really started your career. So you have to, make sure you know what's going on, learning the regulations for what it is you specifically do. Um, Make sure you learn the SOPs, study your SOPs because they become your best friend because eventually you will make a mistake. And the first question you will be asked is, were you reading your SOP? And if you say no, they don't want to hear anything else you have to say. You're completely in the wrong. It's over. You may get a warning, but don't take that risk. Always know your SOPs. Um, you know, ask to sit in on some of the management meetings as time goes on. If you have a supervisor, hey, I'd like to know more about what you do. You may not want that job, but you may learn some things about the business that you weren't privy to. And as we keep saying, I think we said a couple of times, knowledge is power. So the more you learn about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, the more respect you'll get, and with the respect comes power, and you know the rest because the lock said it, and you get the money after that. So it all comes together.
It definitely does. It definitely does.
You know, one interesting thing about that as it pertains to SOPs, and then also listening in on important conversations. Is, different companies can have essentially the same sort of task to complete, and they might be within the same industry segment, but the nuances of each company are going to be sort of expressed in those SOPs. The nuances of that particular team, the nuances of the VP, and just the quirks sometimes of the company are oftentimes half as important as the work you're doing. And so, not just understanding the context of your job in a general sense, really getting a better sense of those SOPs, and then again, sitting in on meetings that you may not have originally been invited to can sort of empower you to be more effective, not just in terms of the work itself, but culturally within your company.
Correct. Because, one thing that I did learn, it took me, I'm not gonna say it took me a while to learn, but, it's, you find out very quickly, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And the more you get your face out there and the more people know you, and the more you may ask the question in the meeting, again, you might be sitting in the back of the room and they may be saying something, you may say, oh, no, that's not going to work. And you could potentially have an idea that revolutionizes your industry, your department. But, at the end of the day, um, you got to take the chance. I worked with a woman and she always compared, getting your shot to sitting on the bench. That, people, spend their whole careers on the bench. I'm just going to get by. I just want to get my bonus and that's it. But, if you get your chance to, literally get in the game and be in the room with these senior people or even mid-level people, those experiences and getting your face out there can change the trajectory of your career overnight, because somebody could have a position to fill in another department and you may say something in that one meeting and they say, oh, that person's sharp. I think I want that person on my team. And now you could be starting in manufacturing. Now you could be working in the engineering department overnight. So things can change for you just from, just getting your face out there.
So, Justin, you've already done so much across the manufacturing spectrum. What's next for you? Are you leaning more into leadership, public speaking?
I'm leading more into leadership. One of my goals is I'd like to be either a global head of quality at some point, in the near future. VP of quality, these are the things that I see myself doing in the next, 5 to 10 years. So I have to, buckle down on my leadership, make sure that, I lead by example, make sure I get the metrics where they have to be. Because once you get into these leadership positions, you could be the nicest person in the world. If those numbers are funny, so is your employment status. So, so you have to make sure you're on top of it. So, but being able to lead and and then speak to the metrics, you know, and having success with that and making sure everything is on the up and up, I know will actually lead me to more opportunities in the future. So that's like what I'm thinking of as far as my leadership. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, I do want to thank you, Justin, for taking the opportunity and giving us your time and participating in QC and Coffee podcast. We really do appreciate the conversation. There's a lot of insightful detail that was discussed here today. So thank you again for participating with us.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I will close it out with a few final notes in today's outro. Take care. That is a wrap on this episode of QC and Coffee. Huge thanks to our guests for sharing their journey and wisdom. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share with someone who's navigating their own career path. We'll be back soon for more real stories and career insights. Until then, keep growing, keep your mindset strong, and your coffee close.